Throughout Jujutsu Kaisen, Sukuna shows very little enthusiasm about Yuji being his host, and is obsessed with Megumi Fushiguro. So what if Sukuna had what he wanted right from the start? In today's video, I'll be exploring how the Jujutsu Kaisen world would change if Yuji Itadori was born with the 10 Shadows technique. Okay, so our story begins with how Kenjaku would actually go about creating a body with access to the 10 Shadows technique. In canon, Kenjaku possesses the body of Kaori Itadori and had a child with Jin Itadori, who was the reincarnated twin of Sukuna himself. Kenjaku's goal at this point was basically to engineer a body strong enough to house the King of Curses. This approach gave Yuji his supernatural physical constitution, but the result was a body without a curse technique of its own. And this is where we diverge, because in this timeline, Kenjaku takes an even more ambitious approach, and chooses a Zenin woman as Yuji's mother. Now, there's no guarantee that Yuji will possess the 10 Shadows, but the Zenin clan is one of the 3 great Jujutsu families, so it's pretty safe for Kenjaku to bet that Yuji will be born with a strong curse technique. But now we have a problem. Does Megumi have access to the 10 Shadows technique as well? Unlike the Gojo family's rule, where no 2 users of the 6 Eyes are born at the same time, there can be multiple members of the Zenin family who use the same technique. For example, both Naoya and Nobito Zenin use the same kind of projection sorcery, so there's no reason why both Megumi and Yuji wouldn't be able to use the 10 Shadows. With that out of the way, let's walk through episode 1 in this new timeline. Megumi Fushiguro arrives at Sugisawa High School, the curse is still loose, and Yuji finds Sukuna's finger. The finger still gets eaten, and Sukuna momentarily takes control of Yuji's body to exercise the curse. Satoru Gojo arrives right on time as he always does and quickly neutralizes Sukuna, and he protects Yuji from being executed by the higher-ups, just like in the original timeline. Things get interesting when Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara go on a mission to the Detention Center. Even at this point, Yuji doesn't know about his curse technique, and has been training to fight with cursed tools. But the special grade curse in there cannot be defeated with Yuji's fists alone. When Nobara is injured, Yuji realizes that his only option is to let Sukuna take control. So he asks Megumi to escape with Nobara and give him a signal when it's safe. Yuji tries to hold off the curse on his own, but it overpowers him easily. However, the second Megumi gives the signal, Yuji relinquishes control and Sukuna steps forward. And this is where things get interesting, because Sukuna has been observing Yuji's cursed energy all this time, and he realizes that Yuji also possesses the 10 Shadows technique. In canon, Sukuna takes over Yuji, kills the curse immediately, and then rips out Yuji's heart to force a negotiation. In this timeline, Sukuna takes over and lets the curse live, because he needs to experiment. While holding off the curse with one hand, Sukuna reaches into the depths of the 10 Shadows and begins testing the Shikigami. He has the precision of a 1,000-year-old sorcerer who understands curse techniques at a level Yuji can't even imagine. And it's only a matter of time until Sukuna tames every Shikigami aside from the Mahoraga. Sukuna realizes that the Divine General is not a Shikigami he can fight casually, so he leaves that one alone for a later date and kills the finger-bearing curse. Yuji's body has gone from a prison to a weapon that Sukuna can use. As they emerge from the detention center, Sukuna Yuji summons the Divine Dogs to attack Megumi. The Shikigami leap forward on pure instinct, while Megumi stands frozen in shock. In canon, Megumi thinks of Yuji as just a random kid, but now he sees a complete stranger using his technique. But before the attack lands, Yuji forcefully takes control, dispersing the curse technique and regaining control of his body. Just like in the original storyline, Sukuna has ripped out Yuji's heart to get him to agree to the binding vow. Now, I won't recap that entire plotline here, but there's no reason for anything to change, and Sukuna still gets the ability to take control of Yuji's body by enchanting the word Enchain. Once Megumi conveys this information to Principal Masamichi, the higher-ups convene once again. The verdict is not so simple this time. In canon, they wanted Yuji dead from the start because he's Sukuna's vessel. In this timeline, there's a risk because Sukuna has access to the 10 Shadows, but there's also the fact that Yuji is a member of the Zenin clan and possesses their most prized curse technique. But then what happens to Megumi? In canon, Megumi is widely respected for his prowess with the 10 Shadows, but now he's completely overshadowed by Yuji. Yuji has immense reserves of raw cursed energy, superhuman physicality, and a demon king sleeping in his chest. But here's the thing about Yuji with 10 Shadows. He got too powerful too fast, and he doesn't have Megumi's years of careful, restrained training. Megumi's entire arc in this version becomes about what it means to be the strategist beside the prodigy. He has to watch someone wield a gift that should have been his, and choose to be the person who helps them survive it anyway. Moving on to the Tokyo Goodwill event, Aoi Todo still grabs Yuji by the collar, asks about his type, and decides on the spot that this is the greatest friend he's ever made. But the nature of this arc changes, because in the original story, Yuji's big breakthrough was unlocking the ability to land a Black Flash. But the only reason the Black Flash was such a big deal was because it was Yuji's first step toward genuine sorcery. In this timeline, Yuji needs to work on the 10 Shadows. But the thing about the 10 Shadows is that it works much better with Todo's technique than a regular Black Flash. Imagine it, Yuji and Todo facing Hanami, and Yuji uses Rapid Escape. Dozens of rabbits flood the battlefield, and Toto's Boogie Woogie teleports Yuji or himself to their positions. Whenever Toto throws a punch and Hanami dodges, the divine dogs attack from Hanami's blind spot. Gojo still steps in to save the day, but by that point, Yuji and Toto have everything under control. Our timeline begins to get out of hand during the Shibuya incident. In canon, Jogo force feeds Yuji 10 of Sukuna's fingers after Jogo's own battle comes to a head. Sukuna wakes up with most of his power restored and proceeds to massacre thousands of civilians. In this timeline, Jogo still force feeds the fingers to Yuji, but the vessel that Sukuna wakes up in is different. Sukuna was already interested in Megumi during the Shibuya incident and wanted to keep him alive for later, but now he already has the 10 shadows through Yuji. So when Megumi summons Mahoraga to battle Haruta and is attacked by the Divine General, Sukuna just watches on in amusement. If he's going to use this technique to its full potential, he needs to exercise Mahoraga himself. So this is a great opportunity to learn. Sukuna makes Yuji watch on as Megumi's life drains away, and he makes an offer for another binding vow, complete control for a fixed period of time in exchange for saving Megumi's life. No one can heal Megumi in time, and even if they could, Mahoraga would just come back to finish the job. So Yuji agrees. Sukuna heals Megumi, but this time he doesn't need to worry about ending things quickly. Yuji will never take back control until Mahoraga is exercised, but as long as Mahoraga is hunting down Megumi, he'll take down everything in his path. So Sukuna doesn't need to make use of his binding vow. To maximize the destruction of the battle, Sukuna doesn't just use dismantle or cleave. He reaches into the 10 shadows and unleashes piercing ox on Shibuya. With his restored power from the fingers that Jogo had, Sukuna begins experimenting with whether he can initiate Mahoraga's ritual himself. When the King of Curses is satisfied, he hands control back over, and Yuji can only stand there in horror at what he's done. The next thing we have to worry about is the Culling game, where Sukuna had an entire plan of transferring into Megumi's body and using the soul-crushing weight of Tsumiki's tragedy to break Megumi from within. In this timeline, that body transfer never happens, because Sukuna has everything he needs inside Yuji. Sukuna has already broken down Yuji's will in Shibuya, and he still has the binding vow in his arsenal if he needs to take control by force. Angel's role also becomes much more important in this timeline, because her curse technique is one of the only ways to potentially separate Sukuna from his host. And this brings us to the final battle. In canon, Sukuna transfers into Megumi's body, uses Megumi's 10 shadows, and eventually uses Mahoraga's adaptation to find a way around Gojo's infinity. But in this timeline, Sukuna never needs Megumi's body, and that changes the entire emotional weight of the fight, because Yuji has taken control back before. Megumi was pretty hopeless by the time we got to the Shinjuku Showdown, but this time, Gojo knows that Yuji is still in there somewhere, fighting to take back control. So Gojo can't treat this like a normal fight against Sukuna, and instead he chooses to wait out the time limit until Sukuna's binding vow runs out. But every time Gojo holds back, Sukuna gets more chances to use the 10 shadows against him, and Sukuna would absolutely take advantage of that. So when the battle reaches its breaking point, Sukuna begins the incantation to summon Mahoraga. Sukuna fights with absolute freedom, using Mahoraga's adaptation to help him overcome Gojo's infinity, while Gojo struggles to deal with 2 opponents. After Gojo falls, Sukuna hands control back over to Yuji, meaning that the other sorcerers don't want to risk anything by fighting him. That's why in this version, Yuji's curse is different. His curse is not just that Sukuna lives inside him, he's also the perfect body for Sukuna to rule from. So what do you think? Would Yuji being born with the 10 shadows technique make him strong enough to change the story for the better? Let me know in the comments down below.